What's up guys, welcome back. I think we have a problem and lots of us may need to readdress the way we train and exercise. Let's get into it. Now, unless you've been living under a stone somewhere. Rose, what's the expression living under a stone or living under a log? Rock, yeah. Now, unless you've been living under a rock somewhere, you've probably no friends or seen lots of relatively famous people in the fitness and exercise realm that have been trying new sports. For example, Matt Fraser trying jiu-jitsu. And off the back of that, you've probably seen a lot more injuries arrive as well. And I have a theory and why I believe we are seeing a lot more of these injuries and what we can do to prevent them. So if we take jiu-jitsu for example, both Leon, myself, Matt Fraser, I know his was done in a warm-up, but lots of people, especially from the CrossFit realm that I know of, have damaged their knees in particular. And I have a theory for why this happens. Now, before we get into that theory, it's really important to state the obvious and say injury rates are gonna be way higher in contact sports than they are in exercises in the gym or even in a CrossFit box where we are kind of, for the most part, in a fixed position and we are not having contact with other people. Someone's ringing my doorbell. I know firsthand how common injuries are in contact sports, especially things like jiu-jitsu. In fact, I looked at a study paper this morning that showed in a 6-month period, 44.9, so 45% of people got injured in that 6-month period. Most of them were fairly innocuous, just finger sprains, in which people came back to training within a week. And then the most common was knees, which is what we're going to talk about predominantly today, and then down the chain, and obviously some of them were a bit more serious. Now, having damaged my MCLs on both knees and rehabbed them through doing the prehab and rehab exercises, it really showed me a glaring weakness in my body and exercises that are just not done in the conventional gym or in CrossFit boxes for the most part. Now, if you think to a gym or most exercises, they are pretty much all performed in the sagittal plane of motion. Now, ways in which our body moves is split into different axes. We have the sagittal plane of motion, which splits my body in half. And if you think of like a train, it is the up and down, forwards and backwards motion. We then have our transverse, which splits the body this way. And then we have our frontal, which splits our body this way, which will be sidestepping, lateral dumbbell raises and exercises of that nature. Now, when it comes to the lower extremities of the body, especially in CrossFit, for example, there are very few, less than 3 or 4 exercises that I can think of that I did regularly that worked in the frontal plane of motion. Maybe a dumbbell box step over and maybe a lateral burpee. That is about it. Now, why is this important? Well, when we're moving in this frontal plane and we're moving from left to right, we are going to be strengthening those MCLs, those ligaments and those structures of the knee which really get compromised in things like jiu-jitsu and contact sports. One of the good things about this is you can actually put your knee into a valgus position where the knee is caved in, kind of what you don't want to see on back squats for the most part, but you can put it into that position under load and kind of strengthen that position carefully without doing it in a competition or done in speed. It's much more of a prehab and a strength building exercise. But if you look at lower body exercises that are done in a gym or a box, back squat, lunge, leg press, snatch, front squat, clean, they're all done in a sagittal plane of motion. Very few of them are done in the frontal plane of motion. Things like Cossack squats, side lunges, a bunch of exercises that I'm going to put up here now. And I get it, they're not sexy. They're not going to be done in a competition because they're not meant to be done under speed or for time, but they are amazing at kind of strengthening these MCLs or these areas and bulletproofing our knees. And it's a real weak point that I don't see people doing. Hold that thought, my Alexa's going off, my food's cooked. While I've got my food, which is way too hot to eat because I cooked it in the oven, massive thank you to Prep Kitchen who supply me with food weekly. If you want to check them out, there's a link in the description box and a code to save yourself some money. Anyway, back to the video. So when I take into account that Leon did his MCL, I did my MCL, Matt Fraser blew his knee apart. I know it was just in a warm-up and there may have been pre-existing injury, but you've still got to be in a position that you're probably not strong in for those injuries to occur. And yes, the injury rates on things like jiu-jitsu are going to be through the roof. However, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't make our bodies more robust to protect ourselves against these movements. So what I'm trying to say here really is, rather than just working in the sagittal plane of motion all the time, get some exercises in the transverse, things like Turkish get-ups, and especially get some lower body exercises in that are in the frontal plane of motion, like lateral bounds for stability, whether it's a side lunge with a knee raise, whether it's something a little bit more sexy like a goblet squat, curtsy lunge, for example. These are all things you can build up, but I know, because I've made the mistakes and I've spent the time out injured and I've done the damage to my knees in the past, that these exercises actually become invaluable when you want to be into sports that may be a bit more dynamic or contact based. And I would also argue that they are also going to have massive benefits in your CrossFit and in your gym training and just your longevity. They don't have to be a major part of your training. They could be additional stuff, just auxiliary exercises that you may put in at the start or put in the end. But my advice, especially if you're going to start team sports or something contact based, is don't neglect these movement patterns. I would love to know your thoughts, whether you agree, whether you've had past experience of the same nature, whether you think it should be programmed in the box. Whatever it is, please do let me know in the comments below, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks, guys.